So, I have a question for you. And I want you to be completely honest with me.
Oh, wow. Okay, put me on the spot right away.
I am. When your alarm goes off in the morning, that very first sound of the day, what is your immediate reaction?
Um,
Do you jump right out of bed, throw the curtains open, and just greet the world?
Yeah.
Or do you reach over, maybe your eyes are still closed, and hit that snooze button?
yeah, I think we both know the answer for most of us. I'm definitely a snooze button person.
Once, twice.
Maybe 3 times on a Monday.
Right. Same here.
But that simple moment, that struggle between sleeping and starting the day is actually the beginning of a story.
It really is. And that is exactly what we're doing today. We're looking at a huge stack of fascinating resources for this deep dive.
Yeah, we have material from Woodward English, Owl English, Lingua, and a few others.
Exactly. And the mission today is to help you, the listener, tell your story. We want to help you master the English vocabulary of your daily routine.
And this is so important because if you think about it, routine is probably the most common topic of conversation on the planet.
Oh, absolutely.
When you meet a new colleague or you're catching up with a friend, what do you actually talk about?
You talk about your life.
Exactly. You talk about what you do all day.
But so often, English learners get stuck listing these really boring facts.
Right, like a robot.
Yeah. Like, I wake up, I eat, I go to work. It sounds like a police report.
It does. So our goal today is to take those black and white facts and just turn them into color.
We want to give you the idioms, the phrasal verbs, and those little native speaker secrets that make your daily life sound genuinely interesting.
And we are going to walk through a full 24 hours from that first buzz of the alarm clock all the way to when your head hits the pillow at night.
And we promise, no boring grammar drills here.
No, we're going to do this through stories and conversation.
So let's go back to that bed. The sun is coming up, the alarm is ringing, you're lying there. According to the source material from Woodward English, this is actually where most learners make their very first mistake of the day.
Yes, it's the battle between wake up and get up.
Right.
This is such a classic point of confusion. To a lot of people, these sound like the exact same thing.
They really do.
But there is a crucial difference in meaning. And if you mix them up, you might actually be telling a lie without realizing it.
So let's break it down simply. Wake up is the internal process.
Right.
It's what happens in your brain.
Right. Wake up is when you stop sleeping, your eyes open, you regain consciousness.
You hear the birds chirping. Or the traffic outside.
Exactly. You are no longer asleep. But, and this is the key point here, you are probably still horizontal.
You're still warm and cozy under the covers.
Right. And that is where get up comes in. Get up is the action. It's physics.
Physics. I like that.
Get up means you physically leave the bed. You put your feet on the floor. You stand up. You are vertical.
So to give you a real-world example, I might wake up at 6:30 a.m., because my alarm is super loud. But I might grab my phone, check the news, scroll through social media, and not actually get up until 7 a.m.
And see, that distinction adds so much detail to your story.
It does.
If you tell your boss, oh, I got up at 6:30, but you were actually lying in bed for another 30 minutes.
You're painting a very different picture of your morning discipline.
You really are. And speaking of discipline, or, the lack of it, we mentioned the snooze button earlier.
Yes, from the AOL English material. They have some great idioms about the vibe or the feeling of the morning.
They do. And it really depends on what kind of person you are.
Right.
If you are one of those people full of energy, optimism, and just annoyance to everyone else, you might use the phrase, rise and shine.
Rise and shine. It sounds almost like a military command, but a happy one.
It is. It's usually what a parent says to a teenager who doesn't want to move. Come on, rise and shine, the bus is coming.
It basically means get up and be happy about it.
Exactly. But let's be real. Most of us aren't rising and shining every single day.
Definitely not. Sometimes the morning just starts badly.
And for that, we have one of my absolute favorite English idioms. To wake up on the wrong side of the bed.
The wrong side of the bed. I just love the imagery there.
Right.
It suggests that there is a right side of the bed that makes you happy and a wrong side that makes you miserable.
It's a great phrase because it explains a bad mood without blaming the person too much.
Oh, that makes sense.
Like if your friend is being grumpy or irritable, snapping at you for no reason, you can just ask, "Whoa, did you wake up on the wrong side of the bed?"
So it's a polite way of asking, why are you in such a bad mood? Without being aggressive about it.
Precisely. Now, before we even leave the bedroom or the bathroom, I found something really unique in the source from Hadar.
Oh, accents weigh English.
Yes. She talks about a routine that isn't about hygiene, it's about muscles.
The mouth gym. I thought this is fascinating.
It is. We all know we should stretch our bodies in the morning, touch our toes, maybe do some yoga, but we completely forget that speaking English is a physical sport.
It really is. To speak clearly, you are using your lips, your tongue, your jaw, your breath.
And Hadar suggests that just like you stretch your hamstrings, you should do a pronunciation warm-up in the morning.
It makes so much sense.
Mm.
Because if you try to speak a second language right after you wake up, you might feel like your mouth is clumsy.
Or mushy. Exactly. So spending just 2 minutes making silly sounds.
Like stretching your jaw, rolling your R's.
Yeah, blowing air through your lips.
Yeah.
It can actually make you sound more fluent and confident for the rest of the day.
It's about waking up your articulation organs.
I love that concept.
Me too. So we have woken up mentally. We have gotten up physically. And we have taken our mouth to the gym.
And now we head to the kitchen.
The best part of the day. Breakfast time.
Now, Woodward English gives us a great menu of vocabulary here. We have the basics like cereal, cornflakes, muesli.
Or porridge if it's a cold winter morning.
Yes. And if you are lucky enough to have time for a big breakfast, we're talking about bacon and eggs.
Maybe some hash browns.
Oh, definitely hash browns.
And toast.
Mm.
You can't forget the toast with jam or honey or peanut butter.
Of course. But what I really liked in the sources was the focus on the actions of cooking.
Right. From Learn English with Jessica.
Yes. There is a great little story there about two sisters making pancakes.
This story is such a gem because it teaches us the action verbs of the kitchen.
Because a lot of learners just say, "I make breakfast."
Yeah.
But make is a very general word. If you want to tell a story, you need specifics.
So let's visualize this pancake making. What is the very first step with the eggs?
Well, you don't open an egg, you crack it.
You crack the egg against the side of the bowl.
Exactly. And in the story, the character makes a classic mistake. She drops the shell right into the mix.
Which is so relatable. I think I do that 50% of the time I cook.
Same. So crack is the verb for breaking the shell. Then we have flour.
Right. You don't just dump flour in. You have to be precise.
You measure it. You use a cup to measure the flour so the pancakes aren't too thick.
Measure. Good. Then comes the milk.
You pour the milk. Imagine the liquid flowing from the bottle to the bowl. That is pouring.
And finally, you have a bowl full of stuff. Eggs, flour, milk. You need to combine them.
So you mix them, or even better, you stir them.
Stir usually implies using a spoon in a circular motion, right?
Exactly. You stir until the batter is smooth.
So crack, measure, pour, stir. Just by describing making pancakes, you have learned 4 specific high-level verbs.
And once those pancakes are eaten, a Well English gives us a fantastic idiom to describe why we eat breakfast.
Oh, to fuel up for the day.
Yes, fueling up.
I like the mechanical metaphor here. Our body's the car, the pancakes are the gas.
Exactly. We are putting energy into the tank because the next part of the day is often the most draining.
The commute and the workday.
Now, this is the part of the story where things can get a little repetitive if you aren't careful.
Yeah. I drive, I park, I walk, I sit.
It just sounds like a laundry list, but the source from English Facts suggests using sequencing words to fix this.
Sequencing words. These are the glue that holds your narrative together.
Words like first, then, and after that. They signal to the listener that you are taking them on a journey.
So instead of the robot list, you say, first, I leave the house. Then, I drop the kids off. After that, I drive to the office.
It organizes the listener's brain. It's actually called cognitive offloading. You make it easier for the other person to understand you.
Let's look at the story of Bob from Lingua.com to see this in action. He has a very specific sequence to his morning commute.
Bob is the ultimate suburban dad in this story.
He really is.
Mm.
So what is his routine?
Well, first, he drives his daughter to school. And there is a lovely little detail here. She sings in the car.
Oh, she sings her favorite songs. That is sweet.
It is.
Then he drives his son to school. But the son is a teenager, presumably, because he doesn't sing.
He sleeps.
Typical teenager. And after that,
After that, Bob finally arrives at the office. The text says he gets there at 8:30 a.m.
and here we hit some really important workplace vocabulary.
There is a phrasal verb mentioned that feels a little old-fashioned, but we still use it every single day. Clock in.
Clock in. This comes from the old factory days, right?
Yeah, where you physically put a card into a heavy clock machine to stamp the time.
But even if you work in a digital office now, you could say, I clocked in at 9. It just means you started working.
And if Bob was lucky, he managed to beat the morning traffic.
That is a great idiom.
Yeah.
To beat the traffic. It frames the commute as a race or a game.
You are competing against the other cars. If you leave early enough, you win. You beat them.
So Bob is clocked in. He has beaten the traffic. He is sitting at his desk. Now, Owl English introduces 2 idioms here that perfectly describe the modern work experience.
The first one is about how much work you actually have. We go back to a food metaphor, but it's not about pancakes this time.
It is having a full plate.
Having a full plate.
If you tell a colleague, I'm sorry, I can't help you, I have a full plate right now, you are saying I am at maximum capacity.
My responsibilities are piled high. I cannot take on anything else.
It's a polite way of saying I am way too busy.
But the reality of modern work is that we aren't just doing one thing. We are constantly jumping between different tasks all day.
Which brings us to the second idiom, switching gears.
It's like a car with a manual transmission.
Exactly. You are in a meeting about sales, and then 5 minutes later you have to write a report about budgets.
You have to switch gears mentally. You have to change your focus completely.
And let's be honest, switching gears all day long is exhausting. It takes a huge toll on your brain.
Which is why by the time 5:0 or 6:0 p.m. rolls around, we are desperate for the next phase of the day.
The evening.
The winding down.
That is the perfect term for it. To wind down. Let's unpack that image for a second.
Sure. Think of an old mechanical toy or an antique clock. To make it work, you have to wind the spring up tight.
That's tension. That's potential energy.
Right. And that is us at work.
Right.
Tight, focused, wound up.
So when you come home, you need to wind down. You need to let that spring uncoil. You need to release the tension.
Now, winding down looks different for everyone. For some people, it's cooking dinner. For others, it's watching TV.
The source from English Fact mentions household chores, things like cleaning, washing dishes, as part of the evening routine.
Which sounds like work. But for some people, even washing dishes can be a way to wind down because it's simple and repetitive. You don't have to switch gears.
Let's check in on our friend Bob. What does his evening look like?
Well, Bob has a mix. He helps with dinner. He reads a book.
Sounds relaxing.
But the text also notes that he turns on his computer to check his email.
Oh, Bob. That is not winding down.
It's really not, but it is very realistic. Many of us struggle to disconnect from work.
True. But eventually there comes a moment where you have to make a decision. You have to decide that the day is actually over.
And we have a great phrase for that decision, to call it a night.
Call it a night. It's a verbal boundary.
Exactly. You stand up, maybe you stretch, and you say, okay, everyone, I'm going to call it a night.
It means I am done, I am stopping my activities, and I am going to bed.
And finally, we have a fun, slightly slangy idiom for the act of sleeping itself.
Catch some Z's.
Catch some Z's. This is pure visual language.
Because it comes from cartoons and comic strips. You know, when a character is sleeping, the artist draws the letter Z floating above their head. Z!
Exactly. So you don't just sleep, you go out and catch those Z's.
It's playful. You probably wouldn't say it to your boss. You wouldn't say, excuse me, sir, I must go catch some Z's.
No, definitely not. But to a friend, absolutely.
So let's just look at the journey we have taken today. We started by debating the snooze button.
We distinguish between waking up and getting up.
We visited the mouth gym. We cracked eggs, measured flour, and fueled up for the day.
We used sequencing words to navigate the commute. We clocked in, dealt with a full plate, and switched gears all afternoon.
And finally, we wound down, called it a night, and caught some Z's.
It really is a full story.
It is. And this brings us back to the question we kind of asked at the very beginning. Why does this matter? Why are we spending all this time talking about toast and traffic?
The source from English Fact puts it beautifully. It says that sharing your routine is how you find common ground.
Common ground.
Think about it. If I say, oh, I hate traffic, and you say, me too, I was stuck for an hour this morning.
We have just connected.
Right. We have a shared experience. If I love coffee and you love coffee, we are friends now.
That is so true. These little details, these snooze button moments are the things that make us human. They are the bridges between people.
So if you can describe your routine with color and detail, you aren't just practicing English, you are building relationships.
So here is our challenge to you, the listener. Tomorrow morning, when that alarm goes off, whether you hit snooze or not, I want you to narrate your life.
Literally say it out loud. Talk to yourself. Say, I am getting up. I am stretching my jaw. I am cracking the egg. I am pouring the coffee.
Try to use those sequencing words we talked about. First, I did this, then I did that.
See if you can turn your autopilot morning into an active language lesson.
And before we go, we want to leave you with one final thought. It comes from the Edible English source, and honestly, it's a bit of a philosophical check-in.
I really like this one. It stops you in your tracks a little bit.
The phrase is, make time for yourself.
Make time for yourself.
We've spent this whole deep dive talking about things you have to do. You have to wake up, you have to commute, you have to work, you have to cook.
The routine is basically a machine that demands your energy.
And this phrase asks the question, in that busy schedule of clocking in and switching gears, where is the pause?
Right. Where is the moment that belongs only to you?
Not for your boss, not for your kids, not for your spouse, just for you.
Because if you don't intentionally make that time, the routine will just fill every single gap.
It absolutely will.
So while you're winding down tonight, maybe ask yourself, where is my time?
Something to think about.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive into your daily life. We hope you are leaving with a full plate.
Oh, nice. I see what you did there. Very well played.
I couldn't resist. Thanks for listening, and we'll speak to you next time.